Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein, alongside Justin Frederick and Ryan Gerdes. If you love horses and have ever thought about buying a horse property or selling a horse property, we want you to go ahead and text the word horse to 623-AZ-RECON. That's horse to 623-AZ-RECON. Did you guys know, little known fact about me, that when I was a little kid, we had 2 horses.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yep, Sorrel and JoJo. My dad had a steak restaurant that he owned, called it the Sorrel Inn. I grew up in the city of Chatsworth, which is in the San Fernando Valley near Encino and North Hollywood and so forth. But back in that day, it wasn't as built out. It was just a big horse property. Roy Rogers had a place there. Lucille Ball had a place there, but obviously that was previous to my time. And so when I remember when I was in preschool, my dad would pick me up on horseback.
That's cool.
Shut up.
That is wild.
Yeah, a little known fact.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, now I don't. Now the last time I got on a horse, I got bucked. And my son thinks it's still the funniest thing.
I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he
does.
All right, so Justin, you are, I would say, of all three of us, are the resident expert when it comes down to everything and anything equestrian and horse properties. You have a big giant horse property. You own several horses. Is there a difference in the qualifying process for buying a horse property as opposed to just a normal, regular residential home?
I say, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like a big thing is, you're looking for easy access for a horse and trailer. For me, I wanted pasture. So that means that water is a big deal. And the cost of water here to water grass is unreal. So I'm looking for flood irrigation. So that was a big deal for me to save money. And to make sure that I have enough grass to help feed my horses, which cuts the cost on the feed as well. Also, I think a lot of people don't think about, you got to look at the rules of the city and what they'll allow you to do in that area. Some properties that look like horse properties aren't actually horse properties. You might have over an acre, and you might think that you could throw a horse on it, but that's not always the case.
And just because the previous person had a horse doesn't mean that you can.
Right.
He should have even had a horse.
Right. The other thing you want to look at is how many horses you can have per acre. I always thought that if it was a horse property, that you could have as many horses that you could fit on it, and that's not always the case. My zoning is I can have 3 horses per acre. So that was important to us to make sure that we could.
Is that usable acre, or how do they levy that?
Yeah, usable acre, and it's got to be attached to your primary residence. So if you have an acre and then there's an acre in between, and you have another acre in the back, you could only have three horses because that back lot doesn't attach to your primary residence parcel. So there's those. Also, I feel like you got to know the city codes as well because of where you're going to house your horses. You may want to have a barn, and you want to put your horses in stables inside the barn. You need to make sure city code will allow you to have a barn, and you may not be able to have a barn that looks like a barn. You may have to have a barn that looks like your house. Because if there's an accessory dwelling unit, and that's what they'll call it, they may have city ordinances that make you have that property look just like your home, and that's the case in my neighborhood. You cannot have a barn that's a red barn with the doors. Nope, it's got to look exactly like your house. So there's things that you need to dig into where you're looking.
So what does the permitting process look like? Is it any different with a barn and with horses than it is to just building a regular ADU like a guest home or a pool? Or is it easier? Is it harder? Like
anything that's over 8 feet tall, that's over 200 square feet, it's the permitting process is the same as building your house.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, you may think 200 square feet. That's not.
Do you have a barn?
I do not, because of the city code. And I didn't want to build one that looked like my house. I wanted a red barn.
Sure.
And my neighbor actually bought a barn kit, really cool looking barn. The neighborhood loved it. Put it up in one day. Had a team. A barn kit. You can buy a kit. Put it up in one day. It was beautiful, and the city made them rip it down because it didn't look like their house.
So I know a lot of folks that have horses have electric fences, and I mean, they're out way in the sticks.
Yeah.
You know, you're in a more highly densely populated area. You're kind of in the center of town. Can you put up an electric fence, even though there's going to be kids and people walking by your property pretty frequently, or like how does that work?
So that I don't know the answer to that, but I would assume I could. I would just have to put up warning signs.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the neighborhood, and I believe that I have some people that have donkeys in our neighborhood that have an electric fence. And they have warning signs on the outside of it.
Ryan and I, a couple weeks ago, we went up to Prescott to play golf at Talking Rock with our coach and our mentor. And we were driving down the highway. I don't know which highway it was. Freaking zebras.
Yeah,
Dude had zebras.
so cool.
I'm like, then I started wondering, do people eat zebra?
I don't know.
I wouldn't, but I just meant like in
gotta be
Africa,
pretty gamey.
do they eat zebra?
Or do they tame them and ride them?
A neighbor across the street from me has emus, along with horses. So that's pretty cool. My kids love the emus. And there's no code that doesn't allow them to have the emus, which is pretty cool.
And
Can't have a barn.
But you can have an emu.
You can't have a red barn, but you can have an emu.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a famous camel over in Desert Hills, over off of Joy Ranch Road and 7th Street or 7th Avenue and Joy Ranch Road, somewhere right around there. And yeah, he's like a known mascot in the greater Phoenix area. Are there any other additional permits for like special use things you need for like a more exotic animal like a zebra or a camel?
So I haven't looked into that because I've never wanted to own one of those. But
why? You should get a giraffe.
Oh shit!
I'm telling you, my wife wants a pygmy hippo. All right.
Oh my god.
She wants a mini cow. She has all kinds of wants. She was never an animal lover until we ended up getting this lot, and all of a sudden we have 54 chickens, we have 3 horses, we have 2 goats, we have 3 dogs. I wouldn't be surprised whenever I came home, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a new animal there. Dead serious. She absolutely loves it. She loves the lifestyle. She loves what it does for our kids.
Like if Ryan and I just in the middle of the night just dropped off a new animal, would you even notice?
I want to put a flock of peacocks there.
I would love that. I want
wanted a
peacocks.
peacock.
Yeah, I would love to have
So
peacocks.
They squawk loud.
Yeah.
We
early
wanted
in the
a
morning.
peacock.
So does my wife.
Oh my God.
She doesn't listen. She doesn't listen to our show.
So you have to have a male and a female, because if you only get a male, they'll wander and look for females. So my wife really wanted a male peacock, and she researched it and found out that you had to have a female and a male. So that's
It's kind of like having a goat. You can't have a single goat because they're pack animals.
Yeah.
They also get screaming goats.
Yeah.
And they'll wake the neighbors. So speaking of that, are there certain ordinances and care that you need to have before someone comes over there and says you're not allowed to have horses anymore, you're not allowed to have animals? Or if you haven't met Justin before, if you're not seeing him, there's never a hair out of place on this guy. So his house is always impeccably clean.
Yeah.
Every time I go over there, you are squared away.
I like being that way.
So I know you muck your stalls.
Yeah.
I know you bathe your horses. I know you take care of your shit. But there's probably some horse owners out there that don't take as good a care. What are like some standards that are required in order to have horses or keep horses?
So I don't know that either. To me, it's just a responsibility. They can't take care of themselves, or make sure we take really good care of them. But I have been at places in the valley where there's an excessive amount of animals and there's an excessive amount of flies from them not being taken care of. And I've witnessed the city coming there and taking away animals and making sure that they're taking care of it. So I don't have the answer to that, but I know that like roosters is a big deal in my city. But I think the big thing with the city, and I've been told by the city with this, is it really depends on how your neighbors feel that you take care of yourself or your property and your animals. If the neighbors call in, that's when the city's notified, and that's when they're going to come require you to follow their code. Like with the barn, there was a neighbor that complained about the barn. I don't know how. It was beautiful. It looked really cool in a rural area.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't be that douche.
And it was a
Move.
It was a specific.
Go into a
She
subdivision.
finally moved.
Yeah, you're not fitting into this neighborhood.
No.
Yeah.
And she caused a bad name for herself. And everybody's really kind, so nobody gave her any grief over it, but everybody knew who it was. Yeah, I mean, if somebody was not taking care of animals, I feel like we would have a conversation with them themselves. I don't know if you guys remember, probably like 2 years ago, there was a real bad fly problem. Even with us taking care of mucking the stalls twice a day, we just had an excessive amount of flies. And we were like, what's going on here? You know, is the pea attracting them? What's going on?
Is it like the 7-year locust?
I guess. I guess it was
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, we haven't had that problem.
Let
recently.
me ask you this. Obviously, a lot of people who are listening to the show, and it's a good time. If you are interested in equestrian type properties, we encourage you to text the word horse to 623 AZ Recon. That's horse to 623 AZ Recon, because as we were talking about, there's so many different nuances with permitting and what you can do and what you can't do for the property. So you just don't want to get hitched to just any, you like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get hitched to just any old agent that doesn't know what they're doing when it comes down to equestrian properties, because it's very unique and very different. But there's got to be people out there say, you know what, I would love to have a horse property. They've never lived on horse property. They've never owned a horse property. But, you know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. The more people embracing that lifestyle, I think the better.
Yeah.
But what do you wish you knew before you did it that you know now?
Well, going back to the zoning is a really big deal. And I'm glad I just knew that the neighborhood had the equestrian and things like that. But I would tell people, you know, read the zoning, read it, all of it. Find out what you can and cannot do, because once I was building the house and we were looking at building the barn, thank God the neighbor put the other barn up, because I was going to do the same thing. And the city ripped it down, and I was like, why? I called the city. I was like, why did you guys have her rip down that beautiful barn? And they're like, well, it doesn't fit the code. And I was like, well, where do I find all these codes? And he directed me, and I started reading the codes, and it was giving me specific directions on what I could do with my property. And that's a big deal. And I think that's a big deal no matter if you're buying a horse property or not. It's going to tell you about, you know, easements that you're going to be required to have. It's going to tell you about all kinds of stuff, your setbacks, where you can, if you do have horses, where they can be housed compared to your property lines.
What about the work involved in actually having horses? Because, you know, we all have kids. Every kid wants a puppy.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, I'm going to take care of that puppy, and Mom and Dad always get stuck taking care of the puppy.
You know, I had a TV repairman over in my house probably a month ago, and he's like, I really want horses. And I said, no, you don't. And he's like, yeah, I do. And he's about 21 years old, and I'm like, he's like, they're a lot of work, huh? And I'm like, it's not just the work. They're a lot of work. I mean, you have to feed them in the morning, afternoon, and the evening. You know, they drink a lot of water. I have a 30-gallon bucket for each one of my horses, and one of my horses will drink 2 30-gallon buckets a day.
Damn.
Yeah.
Does it go down in the wintertime?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Probably 1 30-gallon a day. Okay. But they make their buckets of water dirty. The sun and the heat make algae in the buckets of water. You got to clean them out, scrub them. You got to dispose of the horse manure. You got to the amount of food that you have to have basically a shed to hold this food in, unless you're just doing hay. You got to have a place for the hay. You got to cover the hay.
How much hay does a horse eat a day?
It depends on if you're feeding them other types of grain or pellets, but some people
I know nothing about taking care of a horse.
Some people give their horses up to 6 flakes a day, and 6 flakes is about a third of a bale of hay if you're just on hay. But we also have pasture, so we don't have to give them as much hay. The reshoeing, the farrier, you got to have the farrier out every 6 to 8 weeks. You got to have a dentist out every about 6 months. There's vet checks, and those all cost money. But the big thing that people don't realize with a horse is if you ever want to go on vacation, you have to have either you have to board them somewhere, or you have to have somebody that knows what they're doing come take care of them. And I think that's the biggest inconvenience about having a horse is just if you want to get out of town, it's next to impossible. I can't even have my parents come take care of my horses, because if one of my horses is sick, they would never notice it, and we could potentially lose a horse. So that's the hardest part is you have to have somebody constantly taking care of them and maintaining their stalls and giving them water and giving them food. It's a constant battle.
Dude, I have so many questions about it. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So it's hot as hell in the greater Phoenix area. I got to imagine that there's shade requirements.
There's not a shade requirement, but I mean, which is insane to me. I've seen horses.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That seems like cruelty to animals.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
and
you
I'm
put them
not
in
like some PETA guru.
Right.
Like how the hell is there not shade requirements?
He may not be a PETA guru, but he's got solar panels and drives a Tesla
There
now,
you
so
go.
he's on his way.
So when we put our
I like
stalls,
money. What's up?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
When we put our stalls up, we had 4 stalls with partial shade, and you guys know in the summertime here,
Brutal.
Even if you have shade up, it's like once that sun hits, just say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's sideways for another 5 hours, and it's just beating them up, and that's the hottest time of the day. And so we ended up putting screens on the sides of the stalls and then fully covering the stalls. And because of that requirement of the 200 square feet, we had to make individual shade portions that were temporary, so that the city knew that they were temporary, so we could take them down. But we covered the entire, all 4 stalls and even the walkway in between to give them more shade. And we were having problems with colicking, and that's the horse's stomach turning.
So we had damn hot out.
Yeah, so damn hot, and they were dehydrated. It's crazy.
All right, well, we didn't really get into any tips and advice. I would say for me, if you're, and especially with everything that you just said, if you are buying an equestrian property, I would say definitely you want to negotiate a longer inspection period.
I agree.
Because you got to go through all of the city ordinances and things like that. And I would just say, Ryan, and I don't know your experience, but I mean,
I have quite a bit of it.
pretty much almost every seller of an equestrian property that I've had conversations with, it's just the best thing to do to figure out value, because it is so hard to comp an equestrian property because they're not selling like crazy. It's one of the few times I say I really think before we go to market, you should think about hiring an appraiser. Let a professional come in and put together a value.
And I think that it's important to blue stake the hell out of it. And most of them have septic tanks, and so those leach fields, You want to make sure that you have good access to and from your stables, because if you're consistently driving over your leach field, it's just a matter of time before that thing collapses, because the weight of it is just going to wear over time. So making sure that you have that ingress, egress, so that you can care for your horses and livestock is super important. One other quick question for you that is going to help benefit a lot of people who are thinking about it, buying horse property, is you never see horse property with just horses. You usually see goats out there too, or you see chickens or something like that, and it's for agricultural purposes when it comes to tax season. Talk a little bit about that.
So in our neighborhood, if you have a business, and so with chicken eggs, you can sell chicken eggs, or you're supposed to give them away.
Right.
And I love eggs. I have eggs almost every day, and I have yet to see you in all the years.
I
we've
did
been
not
doing
know
this.
You've never asked, and I didn't know that you loved eggs that much. So I will bring you some
I don't
eggs.
think
He
to
loves
ask.
to eat, bro.
Yeah. Thank you. That's your fault. Yeah.
So you can get reduced tax amounts based on agriculture or having a business that gives away product. A lot of the people in our neighborhoods, they put up a bunch of citrus trees, and they give away citrus. And so they go to get tax exemptions from the city. We haven't quite done that yet, but we do have plans to do that in our back lot. Okay. We are going to line the entire back lot with citrus trees because we get flood irrigation too. Why not? We could put these in as small trees and feed them water and get a tax exemption on that. And it saves a ton of money.
I love this topic. We should do this once a month.
I was thinking we're way past time. I'm like, we could keep going and going and
Right.
going and
I
talking
love
about the
the-
horses.
This
I have
is
a
my
lot, I have a
favorite-
lot
yeah.
more questions,
Yeah.
but we got to wrap up.
All
here.
right. So if you are looking to either purchase or sell a horse property, an equestrian type property, teaming up with the right people is imperative. There's so many different nuances that go into it. We'd love to have that discussion with you. All you got to do is text the word horse to 623-AZ-RECON. That's horse to 623-AZ-RECON. All right, boys, it's Friday. Mm-hmm. It's my turn. One of my all-time favorite foods is there's very little seafood that I don't absolutely love. I mean, I'm sure you could find something that I might draw the line on. But you and your spouse or someone from the podcast sphere wants to come out and have seafood with us, where are you going?
All right. Well, I have to give you a couple of different answers.
Of course you do.
We gotta start making rules.
Yeah, he's
All
the
right.
foodie king.
Well,
we love it.
I mean, it just kind of depends on what style. So for me, if I'm going to do sushi, then I'm doing Mr. Sushi or as it's
I'm
known
talking
now.
about regular seafood, not sushi style.
I want to hear your sushi answer too.
Yeah, so it's Akaihana, which
Okay.
is Mr.
but
Sushi.
that could have been next week. See, now we
blew it.
Now we blew it.
Well,
blew it.
well, if you'd have given me some prep, then I would have been able to okay, but you know, I'm giving it to you because there's a couple of different places for seafood, and there's a lot, but I'll give you two. So Akaihana for sushi, and then I'm going to Papados for oysters.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to Papados for oysters, and they also have
that's a good
they have
one.
a great bisque over there.
That's a good
So
one.
and my daughter loves their lobster there. So there's a lot of different offerings. It's if you're not familiar with Papados, it's a Creole style restaurant, and so it's a great place to go during Mardi Gras season. They have a fantastic front patio. They'll do some live music out there. They have an excellent bar. Their service staff is always top notch, and never had a bad experience. So
That's a good
Akaihana,
one. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yep.
So for me, my sushi is Kabuki, cool little place on 83rd Avenue and Thunderbird. Not the Kabuki that's Westgate. Yeah, different owners, different styles, different menus. But I like the little dive place at 83rd and Thunderbird. It's also right next to my office, so that's wonderful. But since you stole Papados from me, I'm still a huge fan of Red Lobster. I'm still a huge fan of Red Lobster.
Cut the feed.
I mean,
I'm out of here.
those biscuits are incredible. Don't tell me you don't love those biscuits.
Okay, yeah. If I said to you, okay, it's Friday, we're going out for biscuits. Okay, then yeah, go with Red Lobster. I would actually probably agree with you, but I said seafood. I didn't talk about biscuits.
I make those
Their
biscuits every
shrimp
Thanksgiving.
at Red Lobster is fantastic to me too. I don't care what anybody says. It probably comes out of a package. I don't care. It's delicious. Yeah, shake your head. But I love it. But
Sabrina, we love you and we support you.
Yeah.
yeah,
All right, for me, it's actually not a seafood place, but I would agree with sushi. Akihana, Ryan took me there, and I've yet to find better sushi in Arizona, so I would go with that. But I love seafood towers. I just
been.
love those 3 different layers
yeah.
of all
Yeah.
these
Yeah, yeah.
shrimp and crab and all these
clams and-
beautiful
yeah.
things.
yeah.
And Eddie V's over there in the quarter.
Yeah.
I will sometimes just go there by myself and order a seafood tower from there. It's just perfect. It has everything that I want.
I'm with you.
So one more place, Steak 44 has the most incredible sea bass I've ever had. That place, that sea bass, oh,
I agree.
I love it.
Problem with Steak 44 for me, and it's my favorite steakhouse. If we were going to talk steak, it's my favorite steakhouse. But the seafood tower at Eddie V's, it's here's what you get, and here's how much it is. And at Steak 44, it's here's what
Market
you
price.
can get, and the price is MP.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean,
Yeah.
I like to know.
Especially at a place like that.
Yeah, but if you need to know, then you probably can't afford it.
That's why I don't
That's
order it
exactly
anymore.
what they're saying. Yeah.
All right, again, this is the Real Estate 401k show. We've been talking about horse property, equestrian properties. If you'd like some more information and guidance through either the lending and borrowing process with Justin or the selling or purchasing side with Ryan and myself, all you got to do is text the word horse to 623-AZ-RECON. That's horse to 623-AZ-RECON.